Plot: You and Me, 2018. A deaf woman meets a recently blinded man. Voiceover off.
When you're blind and watching movies, what will you find? A blind superhero whose superpowers are acting like he's not blind. A sighted actor over dramatically touching people's faces. Or maybe the whole joke is that they're bumping into different places. A spectacular, macular generation. Tunnel vision to your television. And do they off this movie with audio descriptions? They're movie buffs who know their stuff. You'll be thoroughly entertained. Join Sky and Melissa throughout film history and Citizen White Kane.
Hello.
Hi.
And welcome to Citizen White Kane, the podcast where we watch movies to figure out if blind people can find love and if the love they find is also blind or if it's deaf instead. My name is Sky McLeod.
I'm Melissa Bukta.
And this week we are watching You and Me. It's Valentine's Day.
Happy Valentine's Day.
And for our Valentine's Day episode, we have Melissa back in studio.
I'm so happy to be back.
Very happy.
I'm back in Portland. I'm out of my self-imposed quarantine. It feels so good sitting across the table from you again.
It
Let me
is
tell
very
you.
nice. We have been bubbled up, but you went to far away to be bubbled up somewhere else, and then
Yes.
you came back to be bubbled up here. And now we're bubbled up again. It's been a COVID journey of
Just hopping from social bubble to social bubble
Exactly.
to social bubble.
yeah,
Yeah.
very fun. But luckily, cases are not too bad right now here.
Yeah, not too bad here. Yeah, I was actually really scared because my parents live in Wisconsin now, and was going to the state with one of the highest amounts of COVID cases. However, I was in northern Wisconsin because they live in the middle of nowhere in northern Wisconsin, and northern Wisconsin is actually the part of the state with the lowest amount of cases.
Oh, so you got lucky, I guess.
I got lucky, I guess. Yeah, I guess. yeah.
But I'm very glad that you do not have COVID.
Me too.
Yeah.
Very, very glad.
So we're back, which is good. I'm very glad to be back, and we have a really this movie is gonna really, I think, get a lot. We're gonna have a lot to talk about.
I think so
spark
too.
a real
Yes.
conversation, because we have a movie that has somehow miracle both main leads of this romantic comedy are both the disability that their characters
Yes.
have. They have that same disability.
Yes, we don't have to talk about their performance or question the eye lines or anything because it's marvelous. I'm just leaping right into it. I'm not much for romantic comedies. I don't really seek them out.
Wow, on Valentine's
I
Day.
know,
It's
right?
important. We have to have at least one of us has to be the fuck Valentine's Day.
Yeah, I guess it's gonna be me.
Okay.
So I don't seek romantic comedies out, but oh my God, this movie is so sappy.
It's very sappy.
I absolutely adored this movie. It is not a perfect film by any means, but
no.
I think it might actually make it onto the list of self-care movies just I mean I don't think it's as good as The Way He Looks.
Yeah.
But definitely
it was very hard not to compare the two, I have to admit.
Actually, yeah. I was thinking a lot about The Way He Looks while we were watching this.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, but it's delightful. Actually, I teared up in one place in particular, and I didn't necessarily feel like the movie was super emotionally manipulative.
No.
I think the score is kind of crampy, but
yeah,
but that's just
a
me.
very cheaply made movie.
Yeah,
Just in general.
Which is
totally
fine. It's totally fine. I just wish that more movies like this were made, and I wish they were more readily available, because this is definitely another mom movie. I would absolutely recommend this to my mom.
Yeah, that's good. The mama meter.
The mama meter. Yeah, it's pretty high on the mama meter.
So I guess to set the scene, that voiceover at the beginning of the episode really just detailed the entire plot,
Yes.
beat by beat, just everything about it.
Absolutely.
So you may already all the pieces of the movie, but the movie is about a deaf woman who falls in love with a blind man.
Yeah, essentially. Yes.
We have it is also co-written by Hilary Bach, who's the lead of the movie, who's a deaf woman, plays a deaf woman. Her character is also deaf, obviously, and her husband co-wrote the movie, and though sadly Alexander Bach, the co-writer, her husband is not blind, which I think like this movie does have a lot more of the deaf culture in it than blind culture.
Yeah, I would hope that Tony, who is the male lead, who is Paul Gouet, yeah, who's actually blind.
Yes,
I would hope that maybe once the script was finalized and he was cast, that maybe they had conversation and he was able to inject more into the script. But it focuses mostly on deaf culture, which is really cool because deaf culture is something I know very little about.
Yeah, it is definitely, I like seeing any of disability represented on screen, obviously, and having it written by a disabled person. It was just I was kind of sad because I was like, oh, like this could be equally as fun with the blind stuff if it had a co-writer that was blind, but I think the lack of that voice meant that the blind stuff was always a little bit sidelined.
Well, yeah, because he has, Tony has a friend that he's in a band and his bandmate is sighted, and so they hang out together a lot. But we see Ella, who has deaf friends, and we see whole like conversations and swaths of the movie, especially when she's with her deaf friends, are completely signed. I mean, they're subtitled, but it's all sign language.
Which luckily I was watching this movie with Conrad, and so he was able to read to me the subtitles. So I apologize, Melissa, because you had to like figure that out.
That's okay.
Own.
I kind of they were a little hard, but I kind of sort of just grasped what was happening by context.
Yeah, it's a bummer because they are like it. It doesn't have audio descriptions, and it was sad because I was like, "Grr, I wish it did."
But it was just really cool to see that culture, and just it's totally. It's just completely normal, and it's just how everyone communicates.
Right. Well, because it's written and starring a deaf person who has many deaf actor friends who are just in the movie and included. So I think that kind of stuff is what I mean. And like, yeah, it could have been equally that fun with the blind character, but I think the lack of this is where I was like, ooh, so blind writer does matter a lot. Like this is a good controlled experiment because like we could have gotten like I think we could have gotten better stuff because like In the Dark, which we just did 2 episodes on, had a lot more like, yes, very clear specifics. Like this is a blind person. We know, and even though you have a character played by an abled actor, I feel like these are kind of actually very good companion pieces because we see what happens when you have blind writers writing an abled actor, and then we see what we have an abled writer but 2 sighted writers writing a blind character played by a blind person. Like I feel like it was a really interesting thing to see how much like the plot did not really dwell on the blindness that much because part of it is he just became blind, so that's part of his character. So, and I think that sometimes I feel like we've had a lot of things that do that, and I think part of that is like sighted writers it's easier for them to think about having just gone blind than it is for them to think about growing up that way, which is a bummer. Like, because I think that's a pretty small experience. Like, every blind person, though, at some point had to go through being a blind person as like either as puberty or like when they became blind, but like most of our lives are not that. Like that's a small period of our life that's like not always that significant. And so to see a bunch of movies about that part of someone's life, I find kind of like, I don't really care. I would rather watch, I'm happy watching someone who went blind at a certain age, but I'd rather just watch them like a decade later where they're like very comfortable in their blindness. It's the like, going blind stuff that can be just kind of like, okay.
And I think for the most part, Tony is fairly comfortable in his blindness. I mean, he's still, you know,
Yeah, his character,
his character is, yeah. I mean, he still struggles and everything, and especially the meet cute at the supermarket.
Yeah. That is their meet cute.
Where they meet cute. But just being a blind person and going to the supermarket is a nightmare. And I mean, and we each have a varying degrees of vision, and going to the supermarket is a nightmare.
Yeah.
So, but seeing him be independent and yet struggle a little bit, like the misplaced cart and the items and everything, I thought that was rather funny.
This is actually a good. We were talking before the episode what clips we should play, but actually this might be a good clip to play because it sets the scene.
Oh, nice.
And there's some I think there's a decent amount of humor and stuff that we could get from that.
This is Ella and Tony, and this is their meet cute at the supermarket.
Yeah, this is. I think they've kind of. Is this their true meet cute? Is this when they first meet? I can't remember. There's a couple different meet cute areas.
Yeah, you're right. Okay, so I think this is the second meet cute, but they don't.
But
they
she's
don't,
judging him for not being able to.
Right, and they don't know each other very well yet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Can I help you with anything?
No, that's okay. I'm out on my own for the first time.
Do you live with your mother?
Jesus, no. No, I had an accident, and this is my first time out shopping on my own.
Please let me help you.
Didn't you see Ray? If I don't do this, then I'll never learn how to play the piano. Actually, can you help me with something?
Of course, sure.
Okay. So can you confirm a couple things?
Yes, okay.
Just confirm, because I think I did a pretty good job.
Okay.
Okay. Jar of peanut butter.
Pork lard.
Pork lard.
Yeah.
Okay. Vitamin C?
Is menopause support?
Menopause support? I don't need that yet. What about my gluten-free flaxseed waffle mix? Silence. Are you still there?
Sorry, yes, I'm here. I'm
That's okay.
sorry.
No, it's totally not your fault. I wildly overestimated my abilities. Hang on. This is not my jacket because I didn't wear a jacket today. So this is not my cart.
That's I think that's one of the stronger scenes in the movie.
Mm-hmm. So I think it shows that, and again, I can't speak for all disabled folks. I can only speak for myself, but it shows that humor is our best defense mechanism.
Yeah.
Because I know humor is definitely
it's not a
mine.
defense mechanism. I think it's a way of enjoying life.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
Yeah. No.
I mean, I definitely count on it. I don't it's usually not deflecting things because I think you could use humor as a defense mechanism.
I do.
Yeah, I guess I don't use it as much as a defense mechanism, as much as I use it as a comfort aid. I use it for, it's like comfort food. It's not, it's meant to be, I don't use it as a way of, if I'm really upset with someone, I'm probably just going to tell them and not be, that's what I'm going to be less humorous about it. But I think sometimes it can help to soften things, but usually I use it just to, for my own. I think it's self-care is what I would say about it. Yeah,
I get. Yeah, and it's just a lot of disabled folks that I've met with multiple, any different disability. It's humor is kind of the way that I've bonded with them. It's the conversations that we have about each other's disability and about what about vision. What is your visual spectrum and everything. It's humor. And I
can also
enjoyed that.
shut down the more problematic conversations.
Right,
I think,
right.
I see that as you could be if someone's gonna do some ableist shit, you can just throw humor at them instead and be whatever, I'm not gonna.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's definitely a sweet scene between the two of them.
Right. It's a cute little scene, and it feels authentic and real, and this is something that either of the characters might have gone through and experienced.
Yeah. It's also, so this is the second scene that they have already met. Mm-hmm. And we have the first scene is Tony. I wanted to call him Tom for some reason. Just like a T.O. name. Tony leaves his wallet at a cafe.
At the coffee shop.
We see this like silent scene where Ella is just kind of like sees this guy is basically staring right at her, and she doesn't know that he's blind. And so she's like she's just kind of like, why is this guy just like staring at me?
Right.
And then it's not until she returns the wallet that they find out that she finds out that he's blind because he has a cane, and then she has this like ongoing thing where when people ask, which is a real thing from her life, like that's what it's based off of, that she'll just say she's from Estonia.
I love
when
it.
anyone says, what is your accent from? But he's like, you're not from Estonia, are you? You're deaf. And she's like, yeah, you got me.
Yeah.
Which was kind of silly, but
but I like it. I like the approach with humor. I mean, and some days, as a disabled person out in the world, I don't feel like educating people.
Yeah.
I really don't feel like having that conversation with you.
Most days.
Most
for me.
days, yeah.
I'm just like, yeah, there are people in the world who don't have to educate anyone on anything when they go out. So really we should have that same level of privilege, in my opinion.
Right,
We should never have to educate people while we're just living our lives, but what are you going to do? I mean, that's one nice thing about coronavirus is we don't have to educate so many strangers anymore. I think I'm going to be because I'm already getting impatient with people normally. So I think now with so little practice, I'm going to just like, I'm just going to be like, what? Punch them. I can't. I forgot how to deal with this.
Usually when I encounter this, because I mean, I have a pretty high barometer and tolerance for curiosity. So like if the person who is asking me is younger than a teenager, then like I'd say 13. If you're younger than 13, I usually will be very polite and answer your question, because I don't think curiosity is bad. I don't think it should be shunned. You know? But if you are above the age of 13 and you catch me on a bad day, look out, because I don't want to talk to you.
I'm always just like, I am just like, if I am the person, if it's not your teachers or your parents that are doing this, that's what's like, I just find it deeply depressing. I'm like, even when I'm a teacher, I'm like, okay, I could do this like in a teacherly role, but I'm still just like, the kids they're being brought up in a hostile world then, because they shouldn't be brought up in a world where they have to ask us about this stuff. You know, like, it's just like, I find it really sad, because I'm like, this shouldn't have to be. Like, I get that, I mean, if they're very, very young, but even then, I usually just I just don't have any real patience about it. I don't know why, but like, because I really love working with kids and I love hanging out with kids, but like, especially just randomly, I'm like, the parents should be the ones who have to struggle to explain this to people. I just don't have the energy usually, because I'm just like, I don't know. Yeah,
I think what really sets me off is I'm walking down the street and that's literally the only thing you can talk to me about. Like, you know, and that's usually what I've been coming back with to people at I'm like, you don't ask my name, you don't ask me how I'm doing, you don't ask me about what I'm wearing or anything, you know, pop culture related. You don't ask me about the book I'm holding, you know, or I'm
really
reading.
I've had a lot of people do that to me. Really? Like, I don't want to talk about that. Well, because I'll have giant text. So like, what are you reading? And I'm like, I want to talk to you.
Yeah. But I've presented you with a myriad of options of things that you can ask me about. But the one thing you want to talk about is, how are you? You're blind, right? Well, how do you get around? Why do you have a cane? Were you born like that?
I guess it's like, if you're curious about it, why is this the time? Like, how come you don't already know? Is my question. Like, that's not curious. Because if I don't know, at any age, if you've been curious about this at all, like, you should know. You shouldn't have to ask these stupid questions.
Because unfortunately, I don't think we live in a culture that if a sighted family is bringing up a sighted child, they probably aren't going to sit that child down one day and go, so guess what? There are people who live in the world that can't see. Or there are people
who do that.
Right, I know, right? Or there are people who live in the world that can't walk. I mean, it's just something that it's just a part of culture that just isn't going to come up.
Yeah.
Which is stupid, but unfortunately.
Which is just like, yeah. I mean, that's ridiculous. Everyone should do that. I mean, I don't know. I was brought up a sighted kid, and my parents told me about blind people. So I was like, oh, it really related to them. I remember relating to them. But, like, I mean, this movie.
Yeah, sorry. Okay, this movie. This movie. Oh, Lord.
Do you like my segue?
It's perfect.
My
It's
non-existent
just-
segue.
Mwah, chef's kiss. Yeah, I was a little worried that it would fall into a lot of the cliches of most romantic comedies, and I think that's why I don't watch a lot of them, and I don't find them very satisfying, because I can just tick the cliches off on my fingers, and basically I know what's going to happen, and everybody knows what's going to happen, and maybe that's the joy of watching romantic comedies. I don't know. I don't get it, but we did have to go through the bumps, a few bumps and everything in Tony and Ella's relationship.
Yeah, which I didn't feel like they worked. What was your opinion?
I didn't think they worked either. I was like, and then she goes and tries to have a relationship with this like movie, really celebrity or whatever, and she can't do it because she realizes, oh my God, I love Tony, and I'm like, okay, great, that's fine.
Like a one night stand with him,
right? She has a one night stand with him. They're not even in a relationship, and she realizes that this isn't what she wants. That's fine, but why do we have to do that? Why do we have to have all of the humps and the bumps? And we know they're going to be in a relationship, so let's just have them be in a relationship. That's fine.
I was reading an interview with Alexander Bach, the writer or co-writer, and he was talking about how like he doesn't like saying something similar to you, like that he doesn't like the cliches of like a romantic comedy, and wanted to do something that was less cliched. And I was like, I'm all for that, but I do think that by making it not as cliched, it fell kind of flat on making a lot of logical sense. Like it felt like it was pushing back against like all the cliches, and by doing that just made it seem kind of like, yeah, but this isn't really how the way that the relationship progresses doesn't really make sense. Like, because they're just like, she's like, I'm not interested in him because he's recently blind, but you're just kind of like weird and judgy, like as a disabled person.
Right. Well, he also tried to come on to her in a really weird way.
Right.
Which she wasn't about that, which is fine.
Yeah, but it was just like a weird kind of like, and he was butthurt about it, which is annoying, but then in the same time, you were also like, it was weird because you were like, she doesn't really have a reason she doesn't want to be, like the reason she doesn't want to be with him sucks. Like, it's not like, oh, I'm just not interested in you, which would be totally fine, like, but it was just kind of like, you were recently blind, and so... and you're not, like, you're falling apart because you're now a disabled person, and it came off to me like, I just want to date an abled person. I don't want to date another disabled person, like, even though I don't think that's what it was meant to be. It kind of felt that way to me.
I don't know, and I didn't necessarily see it as, oh, no, she doesn't want to date she doesn't want to date a disabled person. I think she thought that she wanted someone who is, very aesthete and very intellectual, because if you look at the people she was kind of sort of hanging around, the guy in the beginning of the movie, Jack, I think is his name. I don't know. But he's in like 3 scenes. But he's the writer guy that she's like having lunch with, and he doesn't really see her. I mean, the conversations are all kind of sort of one-sided, and he's lame. He's super lame. And so she gets together with the movie star, and he's beautiful and also very intellectual. And she's met Tony by this point.
Yeah, and
she realizes that that's not who she wants to be with either. But I can't tell you why. Yeah,
they don't really give a good reason for that one. I mean, he's kind of like LA, like
very
kind of
much.
vapid, sort of. Yeah. These are very specific. I was like, this is a real person in LA. Like this seems right to me. But it just, you don't really get a sense of what her deal is with it, like what she didn't like about
Right.
him, like because it feels like he's pretty consistent, so it's not like the progression is like if she didn't, when she decides she doesn't like him in the end, it's like you kind of like he's been super himself the entire time.
Right,
Like he's not
right.
changed at all. He's
No.
exactly who he was from the beginning. So if you were interested in that in the first place, then why didn't you continue to be
Well,
interested in that?
and
Like what was the difference?
I mean, I did kind of like how they did legitimately, Ella and Tony start out as just friends.
Yeah.
And you do get to, it's not like lightning, you know, the next scene, oh, we love each other. You do get to see the relationship progress from, oh, we're just friends. Oh, but now, you know, we're growing and we're going to be something more. I mean, the whole, they end up at this like swanky party or whatever in this really sort of hip,
it's really a club.
yeah, club or something. Yeah. And it was really interesting watching both of them be at this party and kind of seeing what's happening from both of their perspectives, mostly because I'm just like, oh my God, I've been here. I've been to parties and I'm just not a really good party person.
Yeah. I don't understand how blind people could enjoy. Well, because it's this loud party that's like
Right.
a lot of people and it's dark, and I'm like, I just can't even. I have friends who are hard of hearing, and I am blind, and I know that no one wants to be at this party. Like that this is just stressful. So it was
Right.
kind of like they came together. I was part of it was like, why didn't they just leave? Like I feel like if I was with a friend who couldn't hear very well and we came into the party, we would just be like, do you want to go do something else?
Yeah, and they do finally end up leaving because I think she finally asks, like, do you want to get out of here? And he's like, Jesus Christ, yes, let's go. Let's get the hell out of here. But they're both, it's very much, because she's having to deal with
Yeah, we do like
people where it's like a back and forth, him and
ableism,
her.
intercutting. Yeah,
Thank you. Yes, exactly. That's exactly what we're what we have to witness, basically. And it's just
which part of me I'm like, why is there no crip camaraderie here? Like, why are they both putting up with all this ableism
Right.
when they could be hanging out with each other?
You
which is the
came-
weird thing to me.
yeah. You came to this party together, and now you're just kind of whatever. We're gonna go do our own thing. No, I don't know. But maybe that was used exactly to show how they would experience ableism.
Yeah, it didn't. But that's the thing, is the movie I think the movie had a lot of good ideas, and you can clip out a lot of good stuff in it. But then I think cohesively it doesn't work all together. Like a lot of the plotting feels kind of weird, and a lot of the plot points are like, why do we need this? Or you're just kind of like, okay, I guess this will move this along.
Right.
But I don't really understand the real emotional core of this plot point.
Tony's family. We meet all of them. All of them. He is a really big family because Tony and Ella end up spending Christmas together, and that's when he takes her to meet his family. And we just meet all of these like crazy kooky characters who are just kind of there now, and not a whole lot is done with them. I mean, they're funny and they're silly and it's fun to
But it could be
hang
like
around
a
them.
short film.
Right.
Like it's not, here are all these characters that we know from this whole movie, and isn't it fun to watch them interact? It's like we have just introduced 2 new characters, but for the most part, you only, or like there's 3 characters that have just been introduced before the dinner scene, and then we introduce 4 more at the dinner scene, and so in the last 5 minutes you've met everyone but the couple,
Right.
for the first time in this movie.
Yeah,
and so
and
you're
I'm
like, this
still-
is so much information.
Yes, and I'm still trying to be like, okay, his mom, his dad, his
Right,
cousins, his brother. Oh my God,
And
so
each one of them has a different bit, and what is the
Right.
thing that their whole comedic premise is.
Right,
and so you're
right,
just
right.
kind of like, oh my gosh, it is. But it's like there's some fun stuff in there, but it is
Sure.
chaotic to do all of that all at once
His-
instead of building up these characters from the movie before now. Like you just introduce
Right.
them so quickly.
why wouldn't they have been, or his mother at least, or the father?
Yeah, it's
why
weird
wouldn't
his
they have
mom
been
was so late
introduced?
that his parents were introduced so late in the movie. And I think that's what I mean with the him being less centralized, because I feel like if he was more, there was a more equal like perspective taking of both of them, then we would have met his parents earlier, because that seems like it's part of his character. And we do have this friend that he has who's cited, but that's, I don't know, that character, it's just, he's kind of all over the place.
Well, it's funny because in one scene he complains about being Tony's sidekick. You know, because
Right.
you never ask me about my life or what I'm doing. I'm always doing everything for you, blah, 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 blah. And I'm just like, but you're a sidekick character, though. Like, you were written, that's how you were written. And then that just all kind of goes away. And then Tony
Goes
does
against the stereotype.
Well,
but I'm just like, why, like, I don't think I think Tony's just talking about himself. He didn't seem like a guy who doesn't care. Like, that argument always
Right.
bothers me. It's like,
You don't care.
it's one thing if you talk about yourself and someone's like, okay, well, that's great, but here's the thing that's happening to me. Like, that's one thing. But it's, I think, if you just never bring up stuff going on with you. Because, like, if I have a friend who's never bringing up their personal stuff, I'm thinking, like, oh, maybe that's not something they feel comfortable talking about. And, like, the second they start talking about it, I'm just, like, so happy to be with them and to know more about what's going on with them. But I feel, like, weird. I'm like, if they don't bring it up, then I don't know if they feel comfortable talking about it. I want to respect that. Like,
right.
And so I was like, this is such a dumb argument. Like, it's not, like, because then Tony is like, oh, he's like, oh, you're seeing someone or something? And he's, like, obviously instantly interested in his friend's life.
And then he
So it's
asks
just like,
her,
what?
yeah, and then he asks about his friend's significant other during band rehearsal. So it's like, yeah, he's trying to make an effort, which is great, but I don't think he doesn't seem like the kind of person who would not ever make that effort. He's incredibly, except for a few weird quirks or whatever, he's an incredibly well-adjusted person.
Right. It doesn't feel very consistent with his character at all. Like, I feel like his character is pretty, like, the way that Tony is written is just weirdly inconsistent. And, like, the other characters react weirdly to him, and he'll have occasion, like that scene where he does go in to, like, kiss her. You're kind of just like, it just makes you don't like him as much.
And I'm like,
it's like annoying because I'm like, there's no reason for us to not like him as much. Like, it just feels like it's out of place.
Right, because the movie wants you to like him a lot.
Right. And then they do that where you're like, oh, but they could have had a conversation. Like, because I think it was just to have the bit where he's like, he can't see her, and so he goes in for a kiss, and then, which is like, I don't know.
It's also
it runs the line of like,
yeah. Well, I think it was also meant to, show Ella's what is the word I'm trying to think? Trepidation. That's the word. I think it was also put in maybe to show Ella's trepidation of getting into a relationship
with
him so fast, because she's just.
Yeah, except for it doesn't really seem like that's the problem, though. It really does seem like it has to do with the fact that she just went blind, because that's the only reason she gives. I don't think, like, it just, I didn't understand that at all. It felt, like, totally unearned to me. I was just like, wait, this came out of nowhere, because they were sort of building them up as being in a relationship, and she was going out with different guys, so it's like, what makes him different? That he's another person she's, like, flirting with and, like, seems to like, and then it's like, why is he different than the other guys? And there wasn't a good enough reason that I really understood. Like, and then it's about, like, oh, he's not, like, smart enough or something. And then it's like, well, that's not really very, but I mean, kind of bullshit.
Yeah, I guess he's super kind and genuine, and also wouldn't, not vapid, and wants to be with Ella because Ella is who she is. I don't know.
It's fine if she just wanted to be friends with him. It wasn't attractive him at all, but that's not the reason. So it's just like, I'm like, there's so many things that I'd be fine with, but like that one just felt like, what? So it's because he's disabled and like he's not as like boring and hoity-toity. Like that's just like terrible reason. It doesn't make me like you more because that's your, Well,
this whole thing kind of reminds me of this a while ago, this really old episode of the Ouch podcast. It's a BBC podcast about disability.
Which I listened to for a bit, yeah.
Yeah. It used to be real fun, and now it's still fine. It's just more news, and I'm just like, oh, but where were the fun? Anyway, that's a whole nother topic of conversation. But they were talking about it was actually a Valentine's Day episode of that podcast, and they were talking, having a conversation about disability and dating, basically.
Yeah,
and the emphasis of the conversation was, disabled people date. However, not, it's not like we are looking for someone who is disabled to be a partner with.
Right.
And
but like
You
that
know,
that you're needing that to be true.
Right. It's not like, oh, you're disabled, you're a couple now. Let's just
Right,
put you in a
right.
couple. Because so what? You're both disabled. You could be on complete opposites of the spectrum.
Right. Well, and they don't. It's funny because they don't actually address that at all in the movie,
Which
like,
I
'cause somehow
thought was nice.
I mean, I didn't really want to deal with that, but at the same time, I was like, I really struggle with the people I know who read lips. It's hard for me. Like, it is actually hard because I don't know where I'm. Like, where they're looking, I don't know. Like, I have a lot less information, and so I always feel bad because I have less ability than a sighted person to like make sure I can like be facing towards them and so they can read my lips. I don't always know exactly where they are, so I might be to the side, and like there actually is kind of like, I think sometimes there can be a frustration on both ends for like totally like no one's fault, but just like that these disabilities don't totally match up, you know, like that there can be that frustration, but he like totally gets it somehow, even though his character is like the trap of making him 100% blind, which most people, including, you know, Paul Gouet, is that how we decided to pronounce it?
I think so.
Including him, like, have some vision, like he is like most blind people, but his character has no vision. And he somehow still can just like really just look directly towards her for her to lip read, and so I'm like, that's.
Well, her lip reading abilities in this movie were amazing. It was kind of uncanny, and I was like,
I feel like she was
okay.
I mean, I don't know. I think lip reading can be. They do some stuff where they're like, where at the beginning of the movie she says something like, "Oh, you look away, so I can't."
Right, I can't hear you.
Right, and they have like in the club scene where they have a guy who's just screaming in her ear, like, "Oh, it's funny because everyone in here is deaf, but you must be used to it because you're deaf." And she's like, "I can't understand you."
Yep.
Yeah,
so
he's not looking because he's doing it right to her ear, and
Yep.
then he does it to the other ear.
And I'm like, "Are you? Oh my god, yeah." I would have left after that. I'm just.
And
like,
then that was I read was an actual thing that happened to her.
That
which
does
is,
not surprise me at all.
It seemed about right.
Yeah.
But yeah. So okay. Like that did not bother me. I thought that her lip reading was what felt real to me. Of like do you like? I don't know. I guess I know who lip read.
I guess lip reading is really hard for me to just grasp because I can't see lips, or at least I can't see from super far away. I can't see anyone's mouth, so it's just a concept that is completely foreign to me.
Like, this is something that I was having this conversation with Conrad, and I was like, I truly think that lip reading is just something so unfathomable to me that it is just like super like black magic. And I had like I was like, okay, I'm gonna try saying things to you without speaking, and you can try to read what I'm saying. And he was like literally able to verbatim read what I was saying, and I was
that's
like,
amazing.
What the fuck are you doing?
Amazing.
It like freaked me out so much. I got really freaked out. I was like, oh my god, it's so weird. But I'm like, yeah, I was like, probably in a given month, I have maybe about 10 minutes of my life where I'm able to see someone's lips because there's an extreme close-up of a character's face in a movie, and that is 100, and they're speaking, and those are the only times I ever can actually see how someone's lips are moving. So like, that's probably all added up in my whole life, maybe a day of a sighted person's life. So like, I just have no concept. Like, I just can't even fathom how anyone could possibly read lips. But it is like, people can read lips. Like, it is a real thing.
No, totally. But I love that there was lip reading and sign language and just all this amazing just all this amazing culture. That's what I don't know. I mean, I'm totally not part of the deaf community, so I don't know. I have a dear friend still, we talk on Facebook, in college, who was deaf. We weren't roommates, but we lived right next door to each other in the dorms.
Yeah.
And we used to joke about when we went out, you know, one of us is blind, one of us is deaf. Together we can cross the street without getting hit by a car.
I have friends who've done that with. Yeah, I mean, that's the. I mean, I think we both have, like, you know, we're not saying we are the authority on deaf culture or anything, but I think that we could still speak to, like, it as disability representation. We have a lot of sense of that at this point. And, like, probably, honestly, a lot of people don't like think about deaf issues who are like hearing and or really specifically who are very abled. Like I think, you know, like when masks started, I was so mad because I was like, how are people going to be able to read lips? Like you can't read lips if you're wearing a mask. It was like actually like keeping me up at night. I was so mad about it. So that's me. And I can hear very well, but and truly don't even still think that reading lips is black magic. And I mean, like, at least if you're deaf, I understand, like, that makes more sense to me because I'm like, yeah, even, I mean, I never learned Braille, but I like can listen to something on triple speed very easily. Like, there's a lot of sound things I can do that are like extraordinary because it's like, yeah, that's most of my sensory. It's much more of my sensory information, but like somebody who could hear who read lips, especially black magic.
Oh,
how do you do that?
Listening to listening to my podcast on like double speed or triple speed really freaked my uncle out over the holiday. It was great.
Do you do it like out loud?
When I was downstairs, I thought I was by myself, but whatever. When I was in the basement playing video games, and I was just like, it's me time, so I'm gonna listen to my podcast without headphones, and I'm just gonna listen to it and play video games. And he came down the stairs, and he's like, "What? Oh my God, he's really talking, isn't he?" I'm just like, well, he's actually being played at triple speed.
Yeah, that's really funny. Well, yeah, sometimes I'll like, because at my work I only have to be listening to things when I'm on a call, so when I'm in between calls I'm just kind of hanging out. So sometimes I listen to stuff on my headphones, but occasionally it will start playing and I'll be like, oh, if someone was here they'd be like, what is that happening? What is happening? Why is someone speaking so quickly?
Chipmunks or whatever.
Exactly.
Yeah. So
which I'm like, I don't have to, it's weird though, it's like how if you speak a language that's not the dominant language, and I'm always like, oh, I could play things that would not be appropriate for the situation, people wouldn't even know what they're saying, but then I'm like, but what if there's someone there who can understand, and then I have to be embarrassed about it. So and actually Tony in this movie is trying to learn Braille, which is kind of funny to me.
Yeah, and it's super frustrating because he's trying to learn from an audiobook, and he's also trying to read a Braille book, and there is the scene where he's crying on the couch. He's just so frustrated and angry at this situation. Which
I was like, okay, it was one of those things where I was like, yeah, it's hard to like, that's a big adjustment to make. So fair. But I'm always just like, it's not that it's wrong, but I'm always just like, I don't want to watch a movie about this. Like, it's just not the most interesting thing to me.
Right, and it was just the one scene.
Yeah, they don't dwell on this a lot.
Yeah.
But I did want to see, because that was some of the more, like, blind person stuff scenes. So I think it was, like, I was kind of sad that there wasn't more of, I just wish that he had been born blind. Like, because I think you just got to do a lot more with Ella because her character was born deaf. And if they had made him born blind, we could have done more blind stuff. But instead, his blind stuff is like, oh, what do I do now? You know, and so it felt way more from a sighted perspective because you know, honestly, when people, like, you know, they become us. When people go blind, they do eventually become us, but it takes a few years. The first year of someone going blind, they're a sighted person. Like, they're not, that's a sighted person imagining something and writing a screenplay about how they imagine blindness to be. Like, that is the first year of blindness, which is why screenwriters who are not blind love to write about that period of time, because it's just different. It's like when you're a sighted person in a blind person's body, basically, and then eventually you grow into it and then you become a blind person, but you're really not at the beginning. And I mean, and that's sort of what she's saying. And then I was like, yeah, I agree with that. I don't want to watch this character be going blind. I would rather watch this character have been blind his whole life like she had. So that I thought was just like a bummer, because I was just like, yeah, I just wish he was. Like, I wish he had more confidence, and in a way, like, her character is just like introducing him almost to like being a disabled person in a way, but then it's like, it would be more, I just thought it would have been more fun if he was kind of like introducing her to blind stuff that he felt comfortable in, and she was introducing him to the deaf stuff she felt comfortable in, but they was more settled in both their identities, because it just seemed weird that it was only settled in one of their identities.
They kind of sort of, this is a reach, but they do, in a way they do that, because he does learn sign language. It's...
yeah, he has to learn everything, apparently.
Right. Well, but he also kind of introduces her to music, to this world of being a musician.
Which
And songwriting.
seems hard. I would be so freaked out if I was. I mean, I would be freaked out being forced to sing as a hearing person, and that would seem really
She does
stressful to me.
real well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was, oh my God, that was really cool when he invites her up on stage to sing a song. And no, trust me, I had that like, oh my God, how is this going to work? But no, she actually does really well. And it's actually a really pretty little song.
And
that
he
they sing.
signs the song,
Which
which
is
is
so sweet.
It's a cute bit, but that would be cuter if, like, because, I mean, singing is not, anyone can be a singer.
Yeah,
like, it's not
I
like
know,
a specific
I know.
blind person thing in the same way sign language has to do with deaf culture.
Right. It's kind of a cliche at this point. Like, oh, you're blind. You're a musician. Okay.
Yeah.
Because you don't necessarily need to be sighted to be a musician, but...
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's weird. Why is that always the thing? Like, and it's also like blind male characters get that, which is actually funny because I know a bunch of blind people, and it's only I know of all the blind men I know, they do actually play instruments.
Actually, yeah.
So it's like a weird thing.
I have a list of blind friends who are male and a musician, and and I have a fair amount of people of friends who are blind and not musicians, but a lot of us are.
Yeah,
I guess we just inherently could do it. I don't know.
I mean, I guess it's more. I mean, it's more accessible.
I can't.
I can't play. I mean, I have rhythm, but
right.
But I like editing, using that to edit video. I mean, So I think also like if you're not a cis man and blind, you're like the society is truly not going to give me a single break. Like I am fucked. Just holistically, entirely, I'm just never gonna have a real job. Like the world is just gonna step on me. So you're just like, I'm gonna do fucking whatever. Make movies, sure. like you fuck everyone. But I feel like there's a little bit more of a like fuck it kind of attitude I found if you're not a cis man. But I feel like if you are a cis man, part of you is like, but maybe I could like have privilege. But then it's like the world is kind of like, no, not really. But you're like, okay, well, at least I'll make music. I don't know. This is my wild.
But I mean, it was really sweet that that he learned, and that they're learning how to be in this relationship together. And most movies would just kind of end it there, and I honestly thought that was the ending. Like they go to celebrate Christmas at Tony's family's house. We meet his loud family. As they're leaving, in a silent montage, musical montage, but he gets down on one knee and proposes to her. And I was like, okay, cool, great. That was really sweet. That was cute. All right, cool. And then I looked down and I'm like, there's still 20 minutes left. Well, what do we did that. What do we do? Like, what more? Because you just assume and expect, oh, they got together. Okay, great. But this film actually goes through, they decide to have a baby together. So this film kind of happens over years. Basically, a few years, not a long time, but a couple of years, yeah. And
filmed in 16 days. So
oh my God,
the magic of editing.
Holy
I mean,
crap.
They're adults, so you're not going to really age in 2 years that much.
Yeah, no, but that's fantastic. But they decide to start a family together, and we go through the ups and downs of going through pregnancy, and they find out that there's something wrong with their baby. Potentially, there's something wrong with their baby,
and the doctors are not telling them.
Nope.
I don't. Okay, do you understand why this is in the movie though? The whole last 30 minutes or 20, maybe 25, maybe.
Yeah, that's a really good question. I guess that they wanted to show the genesis of this relationship, and then all of the stages that you would go through, and then the last thing is you get married, and then you have a baby
or something.
No,
they're only doing a little bit of that,
right? But you have a baby and you start a family. But I think because especially with the genetic stuff, because I'm not don't have any plans to start a family, but I've been through the whole, like, my parents took me to a geneticist when I was 15 because they were just bound. They just had to know, like, if could
Yeah,
I
mine did
pass
this
down
too.
what I have? Yeah, could I pass down what I have to my future
my
children?
parents, I didn't even realize it. The doctors just were like, yeah, we do this. And it was not until like I was 24 and they were like, oh, we'll get your genes and then we'll see. So you can come back when you want to have kids and with your partner to see if they'll get it. I'm like, what? This is what we're doing this? I thought this was so you could diagnose. Like, I thought this was so we could better understand the condition so that we could have more, like, the world could be more accommodating to
right.
me. But
'Cause
no, it's just so we could eugenicist out people like me from the gene
Well,
pool.
because I flat out asked my mom, like, what the hell are we doing here? Because any time to go to the doctors, it was an absolute ordeal for me. But
I was
it was
furious.
very bad.
I still
Very
hate them
bad.
so much. Still hate them.
So I just flat out asked her, why are we doing this? And yeah, she's just like, well, you should know, if you ever want to have kids, that these are your genes, and conclusion, no, I can't pass down my condition
sad.
to my
I'm
kids.
sorry.
I know, right? So that's so
sad.
Just me.
I'm like, I guess when I did the last time, I was like, okay, well, that's something I would like to do. They were like, so you could not have kids with, like, see if you could not have kids. And I was like, well, I actually do. That's what I want. I want children with the condition I have. I was like, is there any way to do it that way? Like, because that's what I would like to have. I don't want to have a sighted child. But we don't really touch on it. Well, it is kind of nice to see them, we're going to have this baby, and whether or not the baby is deaf or blind or both or has some other disability, we are happy, they are happy to bring this being into the world. But that's not really what the thing is. It's all muddled, and they're like, oh no, they could have a genetic condition. I'm like, you're disabled people. Why are you freaking out about this? Like, what is happening?
Well, I mean, I think any parent who's being told, okay, their kid probably is going to have some kind of a genetic condition, I think that's a valid reason for being a little concerned, because you don't know.
No.
It is.
I don't think so at all.
You are okay. That's fine. But you're a little afraid for your child, because unfortunately,
I mean, okay, what if, like, it's just like, what if you're like, oh my god, your kid could be black or something? Like, it's just so offensive to me.
Sure,
it's just like, oh my
yeah.
gosh, your kid could be part of or your kid could be gay. Like, like that freaking out, like, oh no, I don't want to have, like, a gay child. Like, it's offensive, and it's offensive, period. Like, I just find it offensive, and I think that when we say, like, well, it's understandable, it's like, no, it's not. Don't make it understandable. Understandable is just what we have culturally deemed appropriate, and we should just put a stop to this. We should say, no, it's not cool if you're worried your kid is going to be disabled. Like, you can worry that your kid is going to die at the age of 1, or
Sure.
like that their mortality rate to get past 10 is like, they only have a 5% chance. Like, that stuff, like, if they're really truly going to have a very, very short life, that is something that is totally fair. No one wants to watch their kid die soon after having them, and that there's nothing wrong with that. But like things where they're gonna live a perfectly fine life, they'll outlive you. Like, they can have a happy life as long as as a society we make sure we take care of all the human beings in our society. Like, as long as we do that, their life is gonna be just as happy as any other abled kid would be. And so the idea that people are allowed to be concerned about that is truly the same as being like, I'm worried my kid's gonna be gay.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I was putting myself in the shoes of just parents in general. I mean, you have this, life growing inside you that you're already attached to, and you have all of these, this is what we're going to do, and hopes and dreams, and you're putting together the friggin' nursery and everything, and then all of a sudden,
don't do that.
I know, and then all of a sudden,
Jews, we know not to do that. It's bad luck. Don't put together the nursery until the baby is born.
There you go.
It's bad luck to do it beforehand if you get a miscarriage.
But then it's these expectations that you have, and all of a sudden something could be wrong, and that could feel really scary for people. But
what does
know.
wrong mean?
I know. Then that's where you get into really murky waters, because people who are disabled aren't wrong. We're not born wrong.
Right.
People who have Down syndrome or have physical
any physical disabilities.
Thank you.
Developmental learning disabilities,
Thank
physical
you.
disabilities.
Yes.
Anyone with a disability.
Anyone born who
not
isn't
wrong.
right, who isn't quote unquote normal, isn't wrong. That's not wrong. But I don't think it's wrong to feel afraid or to feel nervous or scared. You don't know, especially if you're two abled parents. You're my parents, And now, granted, they didn't know until I was out in the world. But if you're two able parents, you know, and you're told that your kid has a chance to be born a certain way, you don't know, you didn't grow up in that culture. You don't know anything about anything. And now all of a sudden,
Right. It's like,
it's scary.
It's ableism. It's ableism rearing its head. You could be a straight, cisgendered couple, and to be told that your kid is gay or
Right.
trans,
Right.
that shouldn't be a problem. You can figure
No,
it
it
out.
shouldn't-
Like, you
no,
should
it
be
shouldn't
cool
be a problem.
with that. Just because it wasn't what you were brought up with, it's actually called bigotry if you're not okay with it. And also, on top of that, if you are like a couple that's like two women and your kid is trans, then you're like not gonna be freaking out about it, which is
Right.
also why this movie, I was like, what is happening? Why are they so upset? They're disabled. They know it's fine. Like, they know it's okay to be disabled.
I guess I just antiquated it with like what you said. They're afraid that their baby's going to die. Nobody wants that.
Right. Well, and that's the thing, is like, that is what I was like, I guess that's what they're doing, because then they would like allude to that. But the whole thing was, they weren't like, I wanted a scene where they were like, is our kid gonna be able to survive? Because we don't care if they're disabled. Like, I wanted something that was like very specifically like, hey, can we make a distinction between like your kid's gonna die at the age of 6 years old and like your kid might not be able to hear? Like those are two extremely different things. And I wanted them to be like, can we please like be told how likely one is over the other, because one of them is worrying to us and one of them is totally not a problem. And they don't do that. They're like, this is bad, oh no, what's gonna happen? And we even have the scene where she's talking to her mom, being like, how like acting like, you know, her mom went through the same experience with her, like being like carrying Ella, which made it seem like, okay, well, maybe they are upset that maybe their kid could be disabled in the same way that Ella is, which was just like, you know, seemed wrong to me.
And I think this is where this is kind of a little bit of the injection of drama into the story, because they get together, you know, they're going to get together. Like, there's not necessarily any tension.
Yeah. It feels forced.
Maybe a
like
little
they
bit,
try
but
to do tension, but it doesn't feel genuine.
Yeah, but there isn't really any tension as far as like, oh yeah, they're totally going to get together, they're totally going to get married, da 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 da. So then it's like, well, they're going to have a kid. Well, they can't just have a kid. We're gonna do something, and maybe this was Hillary's experience or her husband's experience or someone's experience, you know, and they're just trying to.
Weird. I would think that having her writing the script, part of her would have been like, I don't know, like if I'm trying to get, you know, as a like disabled, like, you know, activist is over, like, I mean, just calling people an activist for being like, hey, human rights is, you know, should exist, is kind of silly, but like, obviously she's on the right side of history with this kind of stuff, and that's part of like why she's co-writing the movie, is to actually have the real perspective of an actual real person in there. And so it just seemed weird to me, because I was like, that part just felt wrong. Like, I didn't understand it. And also, like, yeah, there's some very, like, there are people with extreme internalized ableism who would actually be upset by this, but it's because they have, like, really, you know, very, like, need to have, you know, have therapy to, like, get to live their life. Like, internalized ableism is extremely, like, toxic and like really harmful to people, and we don't see this character doesn't feel like someone with extreme internalized ableism. And so I'm like, it's not that a disabled person wouldn't have this experience ever, it's just a character that seems like they aren't burdened by that internalized ableism. Why would they then have this weird flash of internalized ableism in such a weird way? It didn't make sense.
I guess I didn't see it as a flash of internalized ableism. I saw two young people having their first child who were scared.
Which, that's fine. Yeah, that makes sense. It just felt muddled to me. I was like, there's a lot of real emotions you could tap into, but they were just kind of pushing it all together without delineating any of the different ideas in a way that I was like, well, now I'm just think that they're worried about their kid being like them, which I'm like, what is happening? Why are they worried about this? Like, But
I do like that obviously they have the kid. Her name is Anna. I like the fact that question is never answered.
Right.
We
And
don't
so
we don't know.
Because we end with her. She does. What does she do? What's her first thing that she does?
She smiles. They were scared because she's born, and they immediately take her away. Almost immediately take her
That's
away,
terrible.
which was, oh, I was so mad. I felt so much for them. But they immediately take her away to the NICU because she needs oxygen.
And they don't tell them anything.
No,
some of
they
this I
just
was like,
leave them in
okay,
the
well, this is a
fucking
disabled
dark.
person writing about doctors. Like,
Yes.
this is actually
Oh my God.
doctors, and
And
you
then-
need a disabled person to
Right.
tell you how doctors actually behave.
And
Yeah.
he's like wandering the halls trying to find a fucking nurse
It's
to just
horrible.
tell
And
them.
which I've been in that position.
Oh my
and so
God.
many situations.
I
I'm,
was
like,
so angry.
like screaming. Yeah, that was, which I was really thinking they were going to do a face mask thing. Because I was like, this is the perfect opportunity to have the drama of a deaf person and they're getting information and they're all wearing a face mask. And I was like, they got it. Because I actually heard a podcast where someone was describing this happening
Oh,
to
gosh.
them. And
Oh my
like the
God.
horrors of this. And I was like, that creates real drama. But they didn't do that. Which, I mean, probably good because I didn't want to. It's really
No, yeah,
upsetting.
I
And
don't-
I also, like, still am very upset about, the face masks now.
Yeah.
I don't know, face masks, man. Deaf people.
But so that is sorted out, and this one doctor finally breaks and sits them down and is like, okay, this is what's happening, and this is why it's happening, and it's
The
infuriating.
baby's in the NICU. They
Yeah.
can't
Yeah,
go to the baby.
because the baby still needs oxygen. But then we do get this really cute montage of the window into the room where all the babies are kept, and it's little flashes of like each family member doing things. So one of them has got baby clothes, and one of them is playing peekaboo, and the mother, who's hysterical. I love her. I think she was so much fun, and she's like playing peekaboo, and she's pretending to walk down the stairs, and she's
Doing
pretending
space work.
Yeah, she's pretending to fall over, and I'm just like, oh, this means nothing to the baby, but it's fantastic.
That's very funny.
It-
If that
it was
baby's
really
blind,
cute.
the irony.
No,
that-
I know, right? I know, but it was really sweet. And of course, everything turns out good. I mean, they can bring Anna home, but they're very scared because it's been 3 months and she still hasn't smiled yet. And so they're worried. Brain development isn't ever really talked about or said, but it's kind of inferred. And then we get this really sweet scene where they're at the bar together that he performs at, and he sings this beautiful song that he's written for Anna.
Which we were talking about earlier,
Yeah, which is really touching and really sweet, and it's just like, it's so wonderful to see just this couple, and I was so excited for him to be a father. I'm just like, oh my God, he is gonna make the most amazing father, and so is Ella.
Have we had any movies with blind, parents, but really parents at all? I'm trying to think.
That's a good question. I just got really excited, and I've never felt that before. Like watching a movie, I've just oh my God, I think I said it out loud. He is going to make the most amazing father. I'm so happy.
My dad was the product of a blind father, so I'm the
There you go.
the grand product of a blind father.
Yeah. But yeah, he sings and signs this beautiful song, and then of course the last scene you see is Anna smiles. One of the last scenes is Anna
Which
smiles.
is kind of funny because it is how you could tell that it is from the deaf perspective, because I'm like, this is a visual thing, so kind of meaningless to him. If
Yeah.
that happened to me, I was like, oh, that's great to hear. Like, I just
yeah.
wanted-
But I mean, she of course she calls him over and everything, and and I love.
Well, he puts
like,
everything down to go over there,
Yeah.
and I'm like, that's
Yeah.
not what I would do. I'd heard as much
But-
information as I'm going to get.
Yeah, but I mean, it's really cool to see that Ella is also signing to Anna just because who knows, and
to bring Anna bilingually.
right, she's already giving her that.
Though just
that
watch,
opportunity.
I bet Anna's blind. She's not old enough to know. So all of this is meaningless. They're not tactile signings. She's just getting none of this information at all. But what are you
she
gonna do, baby?
smiles, and it's precious, and I'm so happy for them. Yeah.
It's it's cute. I didn't really understand. I don't know. It was fine that whole thing was in it. it just felt kind of weird and tacked on to me.
Yes, it was weird and tacked on, but I don't know. I kind of after the movie was over, I kind of appreciated it. I was glad that this happened, because usually it's just like, and they lived happily ever after. Okay, bye. And this was kind of like,
Just
this is
like
a little,
about
a little
a
bit
year
longer.
later.
Yeah, this is their next steps.
Right, but it is sort of, I mean, like, a tiny baby is definitely classic, like, cutting off all the real journey kind of ending. You know, like, that felt to be very much like, well, I want to see what happens after this. I want to see the whole movie that starts now. Like, you know, which I think is the problem with the happily ever after ones, is you feel that way. And I definitely felt that way. I was like, okay, so now they have a kid. Like, so that's, you know, I don't care about babies that much. Like, I really love kids. Now I'm seeming like I hate kids in this podcast.
You're
I
a
don't.
monster. No.
I really love kids. I just find babies very boring. And also, like, you know, like the idea that I didn't even know if the first time a baby smiled is a thing that is a thing anyone knows about.
It's oh god, it's a whole thing. It's all about like developmental
Right, I didn't know
mileposts and
smiling
junk.
was one of them.
Yeah, I'm not an expert, so I can't.
But it's just like, there's a lot of the baby milestones are all very blind and inaccessible. Like, I wouldn't know when they were happening.
Sure. Yeah.
And like, it's also just like, I don't know, when I was, they're just, babies are, they can just die very easily, and that's the main thing. It's like mostly terrifying, like, because they can die really easily, and it's just mostly scare, like being scared, and then eventually you could like have fun conversations with them once they like, you know, get to us, you know, a few years later. But it's like, really, a baby is just like, I just don't want this thing to die.
Well, I love there's a host of a podcast described a baby, and I love describing a baby in this way because it's just wrong, it's stupid. But a baby, essentially, a newborn baby, is an eating, sleeping, shitting meatloaf.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah,
it's a loaf of bread.
Yeah,
basically.
well, one that can die.
And one that can absolutely die. Yeah,
and it's extremely heartbreaking. One of the hardest things you could ever go through. So it's just entirely
of course. Yeah, no, I don't want to make light of like of that awful tragedy, and I'm not trying.
No. I'm the one who brought it up. I mean, like, that is the main thing. I think about like having a baby in my care, and I'm just like, I need to make sure this thing doesn't die. Like, it's just like, that is the main. That's the only thing going through my head. Whereas like with a kid, there's, you know, it's like, oh my god, we could like, there's so many fun things, and it's like a beautiful way to see the world in a different, you know, from a different light, and it changes your life. But the baby is just like literally like, I'm just trying really hard to make this thing not die, and like if it dies, it's gonna be horrible.
Right. I mean, I know that I never want to be a mom, or I don't want to have kids, because I just don't feel ready, and I don't think I'll ever feel ready to support another life. It's
really?
Just,
is that how much is that ableism though?
I mean, my parents, you know, they've never like foisted like, your goal in life is to grow up, get married, and have a kid. Like, they've never that's never been like,
because like,
you should
that's
do
what
that.
abled kids have
Right.
to deal
And
with.
I've never had that. I've never had that happen. And
but how much? But did you do? Well, do you don't have any sisters, do you?
no, one brother. But I just,
because it's usually women who get told
right,
that,
right,
not as much.
Right. But I mean, in high school, it was this thing that like clicked. It was just like, I don't have the desire to get pregnant. I don't have the desire to have kids.
I mean, ideally, no one in high school does. Most of the time, it's an accident when they do.
Right. However, this is also something that's like, this is a feeling that has traveled with me through college, through now. I mean,
everyone's entitled to their own perspective.
Sure,
though,
sure.
Have you ever like done a bit of like really being like, is this, because this is the thing that people, you know, what you're describing is something that people have, and that there's nothing wrong with it. But how much of that is ableism? Because ableism does tell us that we can never take care of a child.
Right. I none, honestly.
Okay.
I really,
have you thought about it before?
Yeah, I mean, it's not, and I definitely, I have never come at it as ableism has taught me to think this way. Me.
Well, yeah, but that's how ableism gets you.
Then,
so you never think about it that way. Then you wouldn't have those thoughts.
but yes, but it's me who has thought this way. It's a decision that I made.
Right, but I mean, I made a lot of decisions based on ableism, and later was like, fuck, this is ableism.
Sure. Yeah.
I thought it was me. I mean, ableism dresses up like you until you fucking just
Right.
go with like a machete, cutting each one down individually, and it takes years and years and years, and you probably never ever
I
stop
think-
doing you just have to do it for the rest of your life, basically.
I think ableism comes up more when I think about the prospect of like being in a relationship with somebody.
Yeah.
I think that's where my internalized ableism rears its ugly head, and definitely not. I never want to have kids. I never want to be pregnant.
Yeah, I don't want to be pregnant at all, but I'd love to have kids. So
Yep. Nope. Not me. Can't say as I do.
I mean, okay, so you think that like really like one? I mean, it's a Valentine's episode, so we might as well talk about this.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Sorry
okay.
to make. I mean, I could be very self-revealing.
No,
if
it's
you feel-
fine.
But I think that's. I mean, I think that's really interesting. I've definitely dealt with that a lot too.
Mm-hmm.
And like right now, I'm just on the very other side of just very recently on the other side of that, and so I think it would be interesting to talk about it. I don't know if you like.
This is definitely something that I should be that I definitely should unpack, with a therapist or whatever.
Yeah.
And I don't mind talking to you about it. It's fine. I don't mind talking about it on the podcast. That's fine. But I grew up in a daycare. I grew up surrounded by kids all of the time.
Right.
And I was a kid myself, so and we were friends and we loved each other and everything. But if I were to ever include a kid or someone into my family, I would adopt, and I would adopt a teenager.
Oh yeah.
Because I think
Thought about that.
yeah, that's something I have actually thought about. But I think they deserve homes just as much as all the little kids do. But I just don't. Yeah. It's just never.
But is part of that? I mean, I think that and I'm interested to talk about. I mean, I want to get it's a Valentine's Day.
Sure.
So it would be interesting to talk about relationships. I know because I feel like we're talking a lot about having kids, which is what this movie is half about as well.
Right.
So it makes sense. But
Yeah.
I mean, I think that like disabled people are told they can't have young kids, and so I've always
Sure.
had to like balance. And this is something I've just in the last like 5 years had to
Hell-
really think about because
disabled. Our society tells disabled people that we're not sexual beings. We're
Right,
not.
right.
We're not allowed to have sex or experience pleasure or anything like that. So that's also where my internalized ableism comes from. I'd say more than.
Do you feel like that's like, does it manifest in like ways of just not wanting to? Because I know for me, it definitely manifested in not even wanting to try because I felt kind of weighed down by it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, I don't date, and I had one relationship in college, but I don't really date or anything because I'm just like it's hard, and it's all of this relationship bullshit, and I just don't want to deal with it. I'm so much better alone. I'm fine alone.
Well, it's like we have to assert that we're capable.
Right.
And that is a weird thing that I've struggled with being, transition into like a coupled person of like, now I have, it's almost like a weird I mean, it is a privilege. Like, I mean, being in a relationship is generally a privilege in our society for some stupid reason, which doesn't really make any sense to begin with. Like, because a lot of single people live equally, happy
Sure.
and
Yeah.
or even in many cases more fulfilled lives than people who are in relationships. So it's kind of an unnecessary privilege, like most privileges. But it's not, yeah. And I think that like, but then on top of that, it's this weird kind of power balance because it's like a mix of now, like I am in a relationship where I have someone who can drive me around, and like
Right.
there are now there are doors that are now opening up to me in a way that I'm very sort of resistant about because there's also that comfortableness of like being able to be on your own and like that feeling of like, oh, I know how to be on my own, because I think there's something very comforting as a disabled person to know that. And I think for me, like I was always like, I need to be able to do this so I can find a healthy relationship where there's not a power imbalance. And now I'm in that position where I'm like, okay, I did that, and now I'm in a healthy relationship where there's not a power imbalance. And then how do I where do I give up that power? Like, how much of that power am I wanting to give up? Because it is someone who I trust, and like don't feel like I want to be in a relation, like I trust them to not not be abusive. I mean, that's like not a very high mark, but it's definitely more than that. But it is still hard for me, because even if it's someone who I trust entirely and trust them not to hurt me or to take advantage of that in any way at all, it's still difficult to like give up that power. And it's a weird thing where you fight with yourself, because like how much of it is illogical, where I'm like, it's just a lot more inconvenient if I can't just like be like, okay, well, I'll take a bus and you drive, like, it's just like there's no real reason to do that stuff. And so it's like, but then how do you kind of make those balances and then also not I don't know, not give up part of that identity of like a single blind person that I had, and like trying to, it's weird now with COVID, but because my community was kind of taken away in a lot of ways at the beginning of COVID, and so there's that's kind of a weird thing about it. But like, but then once that's over, how do I continue to rely on friends too? Because I think that's part of being a single person, is you have such a strong community and you don't want to give that up either. I don't know. These are a lot of my thoughts. So yeah. I'm apparently using this podcast as my therapy.
We're now relationship experts, so yeah, bring it on. No,
I mean, I don't know. I feel like we've proved that we're not experts.
Yeah, no, that's true. You're right. You are correct. Yeah, I don't know, and I'm dealing with like finally coming out, to my friends and to myself. I had to come out to myself first before I could come out to anybody else, and realizing, oh my God, these feelings that I'm feeling are okay and they're normal. And for a long time, it was, oh, I'm not LGBTQ because I just want to be included. I'm surrounded by amazing LGBTQ people, and I just want that community so badly. You're not,
right.
You're not queer. You just want to belong. And so that
yeah,
was
I
a
went
long,
through that same thing too.
Yeah, that was a very long battle.
Yeah.
So, and I did tell my parents over the holidays.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah.
I'm so excited.
It went as well as could be expected.
It's a journey.
Parents. Yeah, exactly. So, and my mom is like, well, do you have a girlfriend? Do you want to get a girlfriend? What are you going to do? And I'm like, no, I don't really have a girlfriend yet, because dating right now is just a nightmare. It's nightmare inducing.
Life hack, you don't actually have to go worry about meeting someone in person, finding the
true.
right bus.
That
like, it's actually not a bad time to start dating, because I've always been a proponent of like video dates before you actually meet someone, because I'm like, why do you have to fucking take a bus out to like a stupid place and worry about them following you home if they're creepy? Like, I just want to do Zoom dates as your first date, and now you have to do it that way. So I would recommend, I mean, this is a good time to start dating. That's my little piece. But anyway, keep going. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. But yeah, I don't know. So it would be like, might be nice to give it a try or whatever. But it's just, I'm also dealing with my whole thing about like, I just don't care. I just don't. Being in a relationship is just not the end all be all for me, I guess. And so so I've been, I also have a friend who is who's come out as asexual. So I'm in this weird place. I'm like, I might be, there just might be, I don't know. But yeah, so that's a whole nother topic.
Yeah,
that's a whole nother topic for a whole nother day, but
No, but I think it's Valentine's Day. I should just really pushing this, sorry. But I mean, I don't know. It's like obviously on top of mind. I like theme podcasts for some reason. But I think that like, I think questioning, so I have a question for you, actually.
Mm-hmm.
Do you feel like coming out to your parents has changed how you feel about wanting to date, or like in any way, or do you feel like it had no effect?
Yeah, I think there was a bit of a change. Just me finally coming out to them and saying it. I'm like, okay, cool. Now I've done that. and now I can actually pursue this avenue
Yeah.
if I want to.
Yeah.
It's just, I think it's just finally taking the plunge is just something
It's hard.
it is. It's really hard, especially when you just have kind of resigned yourself to being alone
Yeah.
for your entire life. And I'm definitely that person. I've definitely done that. But it's not been out of a state of, depression or no one will ever love me, blah, 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 blah. I have an amazing group of friends. I have an amazing community. I am loved. I am a loved person.
Right. But that's okay. So this is what I found is I found that I think both of us worked super hard to get to that point.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that like going into a relationship with that from that place is the healthiest thing you can do, because like it is unhealthy to go into a relationship wanting someone to complete you. And this is like a very cliche thing to say, but I do think like as a disabled person we have to have a level of independence and comfort in being single, because it's like really sadly like we just are far more likely to be abused. Like we are just there's just a bigger percentage of people who are in abusive relationships who are disabled. Like that's just a large percentage of people in abusive relationships.
Abused or written off.
Yeah.
Just not even considered.
Right. And that's and then those, and those two things are part of the same system that like, they feed into each other, I think. But I do think that if we come from a place of being, I have a community, I feel loved, this is just another thing that I want in my life that can like add something to my life, but it's not in no way needs to complete me. It's entirely an additive thing. Like, I think that is the healthiest way to approach relationships. And I think that, like, once you're like, I don't really need a relationship, that is also, like, probably if you decide at some point you want to have a relationship, that's the healthiest time to be doing it. Like, some people don't want a relationship ever. That's, and then also figuring out how much of that is, like, I just don't want a relationship ever, or how much of that is, like, I'm disabled and, like, I don't think I could deserve, or not even deserve, but I like for most of my life like was like I am disabled, no one is ever gonna like if I want to have a relationship it's gonna be abusive, and so like the safest thing is just not have a relationship, and like or I will find myself in a relationship that is harming me, and like it always felt like coming from a place of like stress and like needing something that was just not healthy or good. And I feel like the more I just kind of centered myself, and I think that maybe not everyone with privilege has to do this, but I think we just have to do it as disabled people, because we're just going to wind up in abusive relationships if we feel like we're relying on someone in that such an extreme way. That's just such an easy thing. But I think that the more we're comfortable in our own skin, the easier it is for us to find those healthy relationships with people who will trust and love us, or we can trust, we can trust and love. Yeah.
And who knows, maybe 6 months down the road in this year or whatever, I'll be able to come on to the podcast and be like, yup, I totally met somebody.
And
who knows?
And maybe, do you think, I guess, are you still trying to figure out how much of it is like because when you said that you don't think having kids is about internalized ableism, but you do think not wanting a relationship is about internalized ableism. So do you feel like the more you've thought about it, the more you think like, this is something I want, but I also don't think I deserve it? Or is it something you're still trying to figure out?
As far as the relationship goes, it is trying to get over, this is something I might want, but I don't deserve it.
Yeah.
But this is a door that should be open to me. Right. And I shouldn't have to feel any shame or anger or bad feelings about walking through this door. Yeah. But it's still kind of something that I'm working through. Yeah. The kids thing is just, I definitely don't think it's I don't deserve children. If I want to have a kid, I have the right to have a kid. That's, right. I have the right as a single person. If I really wanted to be a mom and have a kid, I just, whatever drive or feeling or passion or gene or whatever makes someone want to do that. I don't have it. That's the best way I can explain it.
I think that makes sense. Also, like growing up in a daycare, that makes sense that one way or the other, for sure.
I was around kids my entire life. I loved it. It was great. I don't want to do it.
Yeah, I mean then you've had more of the like experiential things to base that off of instead of like society. Because I think with relationships, it's like, you know, it's a lot more societal. But like you can hang out with kids and not have children, and so you can get a better sense of personally how, you know, how much you enjoy that versus like in a relationship it's a little bit more weird because you don't have that same level of your experiences are just going to be being in relationships, you know.
I mean, and you know, I like kids. I enjoy working with kids. I enjoy being around kids. Kids are super fun. I just don't want to ever have any of my own.
Yeah. I mean, it is totally fair. It's a fair position to have, and I don't want to shame you for that.
No,
it's
fine.
I always like have to interrogate it because at a certain point I think I realized that I was maybe my view on kids was a little like there was some ableism getting mixed into it, so I think I was more speaking from my own like you know, or I guess I was projecting a little bit because I was like, that happened to me, but I think I didn't grow up in daycare, so I think that you convinced me on that one. You would know for sure. But yeah, I mean, it's okay. So Valentine's Day episode, we talked about, you know, disability in relationships. It's an important topic.
Yes, absolutely.
Like,
absolutely.
I think, you know, it's definitely obviously been something that's been on my mind a lot too, like going through this transition of being someone who has, you know, a partner and is disabled, and I'm realizing how like little of those examples I've had in my life, you know, like that this is, I feel like I have to create my own, and you know, there is kind of a weirdness of like, yeah, gender fluid blind person, like I don't like. There's no
how
I don't have
do
any,
it. Yeah,
there's no examples of that ever.
Well, I like
experience.
I really like that this this sweet little movie kind of sort of you know, spawned this conversation.
Yeah, I'm glad. I mean, I wanted to talk about it because I think it's cool. I mean, it's you know, like being topical, and I think that I also think this movie set out to interrogate disabled relationships as well, so makes perfect sense. Yeah, do you want to do our blindness cutie test?
We should. Yeah, definitely.
Do you want to go first?
Sure. Yeah, I'm giving this movie a 2,500.
Nice.
I think this is the first movie ever that we've done so far that I've actually 2,500. It is written from the perspective of disability. You have two actors who actually have the disability that the characters have. So you're not having to perform the disability. You're not wearing it like a costume because you are that person, and because of that, this movie is for the most part, is believable and grounded. And it's not a perfect film. Absolutely, you know, I don't think there is anything that is a perfect film, but it was so wonderful to see just these disabled folks and them falling in love and them coming together and making a life for themselves. And honestly, I think Tony's got a great voice, by the way. Like, he's got a
well, no,
wow.
Do you know what his most of the work he does is?
No,
his voice acting.
I thought so.
Yeah,
he's introducing the band at the bar, and I was like, you a voice actor.
Yeah,
you have a radio voice. Yeah. Okay, well,
he also kind of looks like a voice actor too. I know a lot of voice actors, not to be mean, but it is like he has that, like, Hollywood probably was really hostile to you because of the way you look, and so like, because he's, you know, he's a big guy who's he's very charming.
That's so awesome to see him, for him to have the opportunity to be in front of the camera and to be a main character in a movie about where he can be blind, where he can be himself. But sitting pretty at a 2,500, would recommend, would probably come back to every now and again. I think this would be a really fun, like, Valentine's Day tradition.
Yeah.
Just to, you know, to watch some sappy movies, but watch sappy movies that I actually enjoy.
Yeah. And the way he looks would be definitely double feature.
Oh, definitely. This the way he looks, and maybe blind dating if I'm still up.
Yeah.
Because I actually, for all the faults that movie has, I actually really like that
fun.
movie.
It's cute. Yeah.
It's really cute. Okay, how about you?
I'm gonna give it a 2200.
Okay.
So Legal Blindness, definitely got an actual blind actor, so very cool. I think, like, as disability goes, I think that, like, it is a really good, like, case study in how you want to make a movie about disabled characters, basically. Like, and especially to capture, like, I think the deaf community. I think it just had a lot more of the deaf experience in it, which makes perfect sense considering it is written and starring a deaf person. So I think that I think it would technically, I don't know how hearing tests work at all, but I would probably give it a higher rating for deafness than blindness, because I think that it was, I think that he, as I love that he's blind and everything you said as well, but just, I think that his character is kind of, he is really the supporting character. Like, she is the main character. And I think that there is a lot of fun stuff that's poking at ableism in different ways, but I felt like a lot of his stuff that was poking at ableism was a little bit more, wasn't like kind of the stuff that I would think of to do, or, like that I think would be top of mind. Like, it was, he like smelled people's perfumes and things, and it was just like a weird character trait that I didn't really understand.
I hated that scene. So that's at the party.
Yeah.
I hated that scene so much. I'm like, if your nose ever got that close to me, I would probably punch you in the face.
Well, he is smelling consensually smelling people's perfume.
It is all consensual. It's not my bag.
Yeah, it's a weird. I was just like, he just went blind, so he must just know a lot about perfumes. But it was like lady perfumes, which there is, like, the industry does make distinctions.
Many.
So I was like, why is this grown man obsessed with, like, lady perfumes and being able to identify them? Because that couldn't have been when he went blind, because he just went blind. So very weird. I mean, but that was the thing, was I think there could have, like, I loved when he was across the table and it looked like he was staring right at her, but he didn't, like, because I was like, that's cute and relatable, because I wouldn't know that I was staring at someone who was far enough away, and there just wasn't a lot of that. And I think that when we've seen movies that have a little bit more of, like, blind, well, I guess there's All in the Dark is the only thing we watch with blind writers, but, like, there is more thought put into the specifics of blindness, and this one it just was not as much there. And it was a lot about deafness, and that's cool too. There's nothing wrong with that. I think it did a lot of the stuff we want you to do if you're making. I wish it was. I think that there's a reason why it's such a small budget movie, because I don't think this could ever, I think people are very uninterested in Hollywood and making movies that are written and starring disabled characters.
Right. And I mean, it was made in 2018. We live in the age of the studio blockbuster, of the superhero movie. Little comedies and little dramas like these are not, I don't want to say they're not being made, because they're definitely being made.
No,
but
they're being made because this was $2 million.
Right.
It's the 20 million, the 20, 30, 40. Those are the ones not being made anymore.
Yeah, I mean, and these, I mean, hopefully with the pandemic and the way the world is now, we are going to be accessing more of these smaller movies. We're going to be making more of these smaller movies.
Yeah, I mean, I think the streaming platforms are starting to do more to give them money to that. Yeah. So I'm hoping there'll be a renaissance of that. But I think that, like, my hope would be that when we start doing that, I think that those movies weren't casting disabled, like, if they tried to, those 40 million movies from back in the Sundance years of, like, a little over a decade ago or whatever, or like 15 years ago, I think that they were pretty ableist if they were going to try to tackle ableism, like that, or if they're not ableism, they're tackling disability, they weren't tackling ableism. And so I would love to see some $40 million movies getting made by with disabled writers and disabled director and, like, a disabled actors. Like, that would be really nice. And I think this movie did a great job at as trying to do that, and I'd like to see that kind of taken. I think that it is just kind of random, and I think it had a lot of good moments, but I don't think it totally cohesed into a full thing as much. And so I think it's like a good, rough, first run, but I'd like to see something that this developed more. It felt like we could get a lot more, just we get a lot more things, and we can get things with more money, and we could get things that had a little bit more, craft. And I mean, I don't want to be mean about it, but it was like, I think it felt like maybe an early work of someone. Like I think you kind of could have gotten,
like a first feature almost.
Yeah.
I mean, it absolutely feels like an independent movie that was made for less than $1 million or a couple of $1 million, and it was shot in 16 days. But honestly, that's not something I would hold against it.
Yeah, and me neither. I think I just want to see there be a lot more of things that are with similar, getting the same amount of disabled people to work on them, if not even more. So, but I'm really happy we saw a movie with 2 disabled leads, played by disabled actors.
Yeah.
That's great.
And now I have to look up Paul Guyette and
see what he's acting.
Yes, I need to know.
Yeah.
Oh my God, that's.
I hope he gets to play
I'm
some
so
more blind characters.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, it would be nice if we had some more blind actors in the world. That would be great.
Yep.
It was wonderful to see that. We've gotten. What is he, like our 4th blind?
I think so.
Person?
That sounds about right. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think we had like Treasure Blind, Touch of the Light, and then in the Dark we have Chloe.
Yeah.
So there you go. Welcome to the pantheon of the 50, 60 blind. No, with C, I mean it's like 70 blind characters.
Yeah.
I'm glad we could say we have a whole 4 that were actually played by blind actors. Only one female identified person though, so that's a little sad.
Yeah, that is a little sad. Yeah.
But yeah. Anyway,
well, from this beautiful, lovely movie that sparked a really interesting and intense conversation that I'm very grateful for. Next week we're going to be watching Trash. Absolute garbage.
Yes. Love
it. It's my week. I knew this was going to make you happy. This has actually been requested by mostly people that we've told, hey, we're doing a movie podcast about blind people in movies. And literally the second question I get asked is, have you done Quest for Camelot yet? No, we haven't. We're doing it next week.
Yeah.
So, yes, the animated classic Quest for Camelot. I honestly, I have not seen this movie. I did see it in theaters, but it's been decades since I've seen this. So I remember very little.
I'm excited. I've never seen it, so
oh my God. Oh, you're in for a treat.
I'm looking forward to it. We got some really good realistic portrayals as of late, so
now let's do this.
So tune in next week for that, and then in a few weeks we're gonna do our Academy Awards.
Yes.
I think we still haven't officially,
we haven't settled on a name for them yet.
Stay tuned for that.
Yeah, we'll fill you in. Oh, and right as of now, Quest for Camelot is streaming on iTunes. It's rentable on iTunes. Yeah.
Cool. I'm looking forward to giving it my money.
I know, right?
So next. Do you love my segues today?
Oh, they're perfect.
Just starting, just like we're talking about it.
Just great.
Yeah. What are you blindsided by this week,
right.
Melissa?
Okay, so this week, I actually had a couple of things to pick from. I've been having a very some productive weeks. It's been nice. But I think the thing that I'm going to choose. So I started playing this new video game called Spiritfarer. I'm playing it on the Switch. I'm not sure if it's available for any other platforms, but I'm playing it on the Switch. And you play Stella, who is charged at the beginning of the game by Chiron, the ferryman who ferries the souls of the dead over the river Styx. You're charged by him to become the new Spiritfarer. And so you and your cat, you get a boat, and you island hop basically, and I'm not really sure where we are, if we're like in limbo or the afterlife or whatever, but you island hop to these different islands and you collect spirits.
Ooh.
And you upgrade your little boat, and you basically taking them to the afterlife essentially.
Oh, someone's got to do it.
Right. So it might as well be me. It is a beautiful game. It is just a really soothing game. It's got a lovely soundtrack. It's got really lovely sound design. My boat has like a garden on it, and a field, and a kitchen, and a loom, and all these like guest cabins for the little spirits that I have. And the dialogue is really charming. It's just been a really fun, lovely, gentle game, and just distraction. There's no combat in it at all.
Nice.
Yeah, it's really cool. And the Stella is a person of color.
Nice.
As the main character. Yeah.
Stella.
I know, I did the same thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's very, very, very enjoyable, and it's occupying a lot of my time because it's gentle.
Sounds like a very quarantine
Yes,
proper
actually.
game. Like it seems very like a way of reframing. It just feels, I don't know.
Yeah.
Feels like it just, it makes sense to be playing it right now.
Yeah.
I could see that being relaxing. Well,
Yep.
thank you. So
yeah.
that is...
That's Spiritfarer, and it's on the Switch, or at least that's what I'm playing it on.
Nice. How do you spell fairer?
Like fairer as in like farrier, because I'm a farrier.
That makes sense.
Fairier, I think.
Sure.
But Spiritfarer is the game.
Okay. Yeah. If you put it in Google, it might autocorrect.
It'll autocorrect and then come up.
Yeah. Maybe add in Switch, and then you'll definitely get it.
Yeah.
That sounds really nice.
Mm-hmm.
My blindsided by this week, very similar, is a book. This is actually kind of a extension. I've been on a kick recently of linguistic books.
Oh, nice.
So it is called Word Slut, and it's by Amanda Montell. It's so great. It's about like language and gender, and it's a lot about how like the way that women speak is basically like scapegoated pretty much by people, and all the things like likes and upspeak and vocal fry,
oh
and
my
how all that stuff was like used as a way of like to tell women who are using, like, she talks all about how much that stuff is like a way of like claiming power, and like how it serves all these different functions, and that people villainize it as a way of like putting women down, but that there's nothing to be ashamed of, and that it actually has like these really like kind of the social messages they give are really complex, and it is just a really fun book. She talks about the difference between like gender and like sex and assigned at birth, and goes into like how trans people talk about like genitalia, and like how we have these different words, and like how even just the way that we talk about sex is always about like somewhat like a penis being shoved into a vagina, and that's kind of the perspective that it takes, and like she's like, what if we talked about sex as like like engulfed last night, and what was that like, and how it's just like we're coming from this like one perspective in the way we talk, but it's such a fun book. It's so enjoyable.
That sounds amazing. I actually opened Libby right now.
I was going to say it's called Word Slut.
Yeah.
And it is, again, by Amanda Montell. It is available on Audible, so there's an audiobook out there read by her, so it is always fun when you can have the author. And it's really nice because there is stuff like vocal fry and upspeak and different things where you actually do need to hear someone say it to understand it fully, so you can actually hear her demonstrating different things, which is cool.
Brilliant, because I haven't finished it yet, but I started the book on swear words
Yeah.
that you recommended. It's
Giving all these
super-
linguistic.
super duper interesting. I love it. Yeah, so I'm very excited to read that.
It's really great. I finished it, but yeah, it's a quick read too. So yeah, definitely worth it. That's my linguistic feminist book for today.
Brilliant.
Yeah, I guess it's a podcast.
We did it.
Yeah.
We did it. Now we're gonna
Happy Valentine's Day.
Happy Valentine's Day.
We hope that your Valentine is this podcast and that you tell your loved ones to also love this podcast and to give us love with 5-star reviews and ratings.
And or just subscribe.
Yeah. Our theme song is by Lucia Fasano, who you really should love because she is very great.
Yes.
Our YouTube is Citizen White Cane Podcast. If you love to read the podcast while you listen to it, you can turn on closed captions. Our Twitter is White Cane Pod. If you love tweeting, which I don't, sorry guys. And our Facebook,
we're gonna work on that.
we're gonna what's the right word? Rehabilitate our social media.
Yeah.
So definitely check them out for that reason alone. Our Facebook and our Instagram are both Citizen White Cane, the podcast, the name of the podcast that you love. You can send us an email to citizenwhitecanepod@gmail.com. And if you would like to send us a voice message, which we really would love you to do, there's a link in the show notes. What is your journey as a blind person, and how do you feel about love and children?
If you and your best friend started a theatrical funk band, what's your band name and your hit single?
Yeah, and what would be the outfits you wear? Because that's part of it too.
Yes.
And what is the different developmental stages of a baby, and when is smiling supposed to happen?
That's a really good question.
We would love to know that, or any thoughts on what things we should watch next. There's a link in the show notes, and come back next week. We're gonna get to very serious, well thought out, and
very beautifully animated.
Yes, very wonderful and poignant film next week. So
Next week it's Quest for Camelot.
we'll see you there.
Bye.
Citizen White Cane.
I mean, it helps. I could, be sobbing in a corner, writing in a diary, but
Sure.
that doesn't really help anybody.
You can just sob in a corner playing the guitar.
On stage, yeah.
Right, in front of people.